Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first session of the 2021 State of Medical Device Virtual Summit. Couldn't be more excited to have you all here. The 2021 State of Medical Device Virtual Summit is a two-day online event to help quality, regulatory, and product development professionals better understand the strategies, tactics, and technologies being used today and uncover best practices, tips, and trends for the evolving nature of the medical device industry. And we couldn't be more excited to welcome you all here today. We have over 4,000 people registered for the event over the next 2 days, and we have some great speakers and some great insights coming for you. Really excited for all the content we have coming up. So for today's session, we're really excited to dive into the industry benchmark and data insights from our brand new State of Medical Device Product Development and Quality Management report and help you discover what makes a market leader in 2021. The report was actually just released right at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time today, so literally 1 minute ago. So after this presentation, be sure to head over to our website and download the full report. My name is Nick Tippman. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Greenlight Guru, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Before we dive too deep into today's presentation and introduce our speaker, John Speer, I'm going to touch on a few housekeeping items real quick. First, the session is about 45 minutes long and will include Q&A at the end. Please submit your questions throughout the presentation in the box on the right-hand side, and we will get to as many of them as time permits. This entire session, yes, it's being recorded, and yes, the slides will be available for you to download. I'd also like to share a few words about Greenlight Guru and why we put on this free virtual summit. Our mission is to improve the quality of life. Anything that we can do as an organization that helps bring safer, life-changing devices to market quicker and with less risk aligns with that mission. Whether that's through hosting free training sessions like this or through our award-winning medical device QMS software. If you'd like to learn more about why medical device companies around the world are moving away from paper-based and general purpose quality management systems and adopting our purpose-built medical device quality management software, head on over to www.greenlightguru after today's session to schedule your free personalized demo. So now on to the bulk of today's presentation. Let me give a proper introduction to your presenter today, John Speer. John Speer is the founder at Greenlight Guru. He is a medical device professional with over 20 years experience in the industry, specifically with quality management, product development, project management, regulatory submissions, and more. You might have seen some of his content contributions that have been published on industry news sites like Forbes, MedTech Intelligence, Med Device Online, and more. He's also the host of the #1 most listened to podcast in the industry, the Global Medical Device Podcast, powered by Greenlight Guru. And as many of you may know, a close friend here at Greenlight Guru. So without further ado, let me hand it over to your presenter, John Speer.
Thank you, Nick. And thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedules and your day to participate in this summit. As Nick mentioned, there's a pretty awesome report, the 2021 State of Medical Device Quality Management and Product Development, that's available for download. So don't go there yet. As the session wraps up here in a little bit, I would encourage you to go to the Greenlight Guru website, www.greenlight.guru, and get your copy of that report. And I'm sure we'll make sure that you get that. But today, my intent really is to give you a little bit of I guess, some insights or a glimpse into that survey. Talk a little bit about what's happening. Obviously, we've all been dealing with a new normal, whatever that means. So hopefully you all are safe and sound and taking care of your health and your loved ones and all that sort of thing. Quick agenda. I want to go through some benchmarks and some key findings. I'm encouraged by the results of this survey, at least compared to previous years when we've done this sort of thing. It seems like we are moving the needle forward, so to speak. Talk a little bit about what market-leading companies are doing to stay ahead. Talk about technology and how it can be a key advantage, competitive advantage to your business. Quality, we're going to talk a little bit, or actually probably quite a bit about that, frankly, and its importance in a business culture and how things are doing within organizations from a top leadership perspective with respect to those that that work in the trenches, so to speak. And then we're going to give a little bit of prescriptive advice. And then, as Nick mentioned, we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end. So let's just dive right in. And again, if you have questions as I'm going through the materials today, I would encourage you to type those questions at any point in time in the question window on the right-hand side of your screen. All right, so let's give you a little bit of demographics. Who took the survey? As you can see, the vast majority of folks that took the survey, they've got, at least 6 or more years of experience. So this is a pretty seasoned group of survey participants. They've been in this space for quite some time. As far as the size of the company, this is pretty representative of actually the demographics of the medical device industry. It seems to be a little known fact, but it's something like 80% of medical device companies are 200 employees or less. So you can see from the breakdown that this is pretty close approximation to representing the actual demographics of the industry. And then as far as the role, pretty good mix, with the majority of folks being in a middle management type of role. So let's talk about some of the critical industry benchmarks. All right, let's hit it head on here. I mean, obviously we've all been dealing with COVID-19 pandemic in some way, shape, or another. And I know anecdotally from from Greenlight and a lot of companies that we work with, certainly in those early months, late Q1, early Q2 of 2020, everyone was trying to figure out, how to live in this new world, or how long things were going to be in this state. Obviously, several months later, we've accepted that this is sort of the reality, at least for the interim. There has been, I'm sure, no surprise to many of you listening today, there has been some effect on funding. It's been somewhat tough, especially in those early months. Like I said, March, April, May-ish timeframe, funding was really hard to come by. And our survey respondents basically validate or correlate with that anecdote that we felt. There was also some impact on time to market. Even, I think I saw an article yesterday from Dr. Shuren, head of CDRH at FDA, talking about the impact COVID has had, and EUAs, the emergency use authorization, and how this has had some influence on, sort of standard normal business operations from a regulatory perspective. And to be honest, there are a few other things at play, especially when you talk about EU, that have had some influence on time to market too. So there is a little bit of impact on time to market. As far as looking ahead, a lot of respondents feel pretty positive. I mean, it's not quite half, but well over a third feel like there's going to be strong revenue growth, and quite a few more yet still feel like there's going to be modest revenue growth. So that's very, very encouraging for our industry. Very few think that revenue is going to shrink. I think one of the really insightful things that we learned at Greenlight Guru as part of this pandemic is, well, what started to emerge is that a lot of companies, a lot of our customers, a lot of new customers became really interested in our product offering, our platform, our medical device quality management system platform, because a lot of companies were forced to be remote and work virtually from one another. And in order to do that successfully, you need a tool or a solution, a platform that can actually enable that remote work. And Greenlight certainly does that for our customers. So I think this is one of those gotchas that some companies who weren't necessarily prepared when the pandemic came in full steam, that if they didn't have their systems and the right tools and the right solutions in place, they were going to struggle for a bit. And some of them did, actually. So a lot of companies are still relying on documents that are on a shared network, and that creates some challenges because key thing about being a medical device company is having access to the documentation and the records that you need to be successful to do your job. So this is one of those things that sort of emerged as a theme, if you will, over the past few months. And I think this has been, as I mentioned on the onset, this has sort of been a theme that we've been monitoring pretty closely at Greenlight Guru for quite some time. When we started the company back in 2013, the statistics around uh, what kind of tools or solutions companies were using to manage their design controls and risk, as well as their quality management system, at that point in time was overwhelmingly paper. I don't remember the exact statistic, but it was something like 2/3 of the industry was still very reliant on paper, even digital paper. Like general purpose tools, servers, things of that nature. And we're seeing that over the past couple of years, we've been seeing that needle move quite a bit towards becoming more and more digital in nature. As we can see today, that from a design control and risk management perspective, there's still over half of the survey participants are still using general purpose tools, primarily things like paper, Excel, Word. Um, but again, like I said, a couple of years ago, that was more towards 2/3 of respondents. Same thing we're seeing on the quality management system side. We're still hovering right around 50% of folks who are still using general purpose tools rather than purpose-built solutions. But again, that's improving. And I think that's for all of you participating today. I think that's something to pay attention to. Whether you come to Greenlight Guru for a medical device quality management system platform or some other solution, I think this is something to pay attention to. That COVID sort of forced it upon us, and maybe some folks had to make decisions and choose tools that maybe weren't a good fit. But I think going forward, we need to be very cognizant of this as an industry. I mean, even FDA has come out with a preliminary pilot program where they're looking to do or exploring the possibility of doing some remote inspections. I know notified bodies have been doing this, and auditing organizations for 1345 have been doing this for the past several months too. So this is sort of the new normal, regardless of if we're in a pandemic or not, that let's leverage technology to our advantage. Quality. I mean, this is the word quality is one of those things that usually trigger some sort of visceral reaction, good or bad, from individuals. But I think we all at least I hope we're all in this industry to improve the quality of life. And one of the things that is a measure of improving the quality of life is around quality. And that's really important, that a quality first culture has to be ingrained in our companies as medical device companies. This has to be, first and foremost focus of our organizations. But there are some challenges in order to actually embrace this quality first mentality or this quality first culture and mindset. Some of those challenges around budget and the cost and effort and resources and time that it takes to validate any sort of software and new tools that you're looking to put in place and try to embrace more automation. There's a cost to do so, a barrier to entry, if you will. And largely speaking, I mean, this isn't unique to med device, but just humans in general, we are resistant to change, even if we know that change is going to be a better existence for us as individuals. That barrier, that obstacle sometimes is perceived as too great, and we're comfortable with our old way, even if we know that our old way isn't the best, most efficient use of our time, effort, money, resources, etc. So we're really kind of trapped as an organization, or I'm sorry, as an industry, to leverage the technology, leverage best practices, because we're very comfortable with our old ways, even if we know those old ways aren't the best. So there are a few, sort of ways to sort of measure our efficiency as an organization. I mean, even way back when we started Greenlight Guru back in 2013, our initial focus was about simplifying product development, trying to shave some valuable time off that product development timeline and simplify practices and simplify the time and resources that are required to document things like design controls and compile things like a design history file and risk management, things of that nature. As a former product development engineer myself, one of the things that used to frustrate me to no end was all the time that I was spending during my day, during my week, conducting low or no value add activities. And I would say compiling a design history file is one of those things that's really frustrating. I mean, this should be something that's just sort of the standard flow of how I do product development, but sadly, too often, companies and product development teams, they struggle to do that, and they find themselves at some point in time having to invest a significant amount of time just compiling a design history file. And a lot of times that's done sort of after the fact, somewhat retrospectively. I'm ready to, when I've completed a project and move from development into manufacturing to complete that design transfer, the last thing that I want to do is spend 144 hours of my time compiling a design history file. I'm ready to move on to the next new product development. And I'm sure many of you in those circumstances and in those roles are probably thinking the same sort of thing. So what if there was a way to like simplify your life with respect to compiling a design history file? The other thing that is frustrating, and I've been there, I know how challenging this is just the traceability matrix. It seems so simple in concept as far as the connection of all your design controls, the flow of user needs through inputs, outputs, verification, validation. Keeping that traceability matrix current and up to date is important for communication, it's important for collaboration, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to do so. And that's just something that can be frustrating from time to time. Closed loop traceability, this is a new theme. This is something that is very important, especially as EU MDR we're on the heels of that. It's just a few months away, and there's this whole movement, not just with EU MDR, but all regulatory bodies, for the most part, are about following the thread, if you will, tracing that thread and showing the flow of information from development to production and post-production, and monitoring post-market surveillance activities, quality events, things like CAPAs, complaints, et cetera, and feeding that back into your development process to improve upon your products. So there are a couple of key indicators that we want to pay attention to. Innovation is one of those important themes or words. Sometimes it gets tossed around within our industry, sometimes a little with a little cavalier nature, but innovation is important. It is the lifeblood of a lot of medical device companies, and focusing on that innovation is really important. So if you're spending a lot of time, effort, and energy doing low or no value add activities, like I alluded to on the previous slide, just spending hours upon hours upon hours updating things that should just be natural in the flow of business, then you're losing opportunities for innovation. So what if you could get that time back? That potentially could give you some more opportunity to be more innovative as a medical device company. Now, quality as a strategic asset is really one of these. I think this is what we're starting to see at Greenlight Guru. This is where the best practice, the competitive advantage that can be a real asset to your business. And what we're starting to see is 45% see quality management as a strategic asset, critical to the competitive position. 55% see quality management as necessary in order to be compliant. So we still got work to do, folks. I would love to see the next time we do this survey in 2020 for the 2022. These numbers just don't roll off so smoothly just yet. But when we talk again in the year, I'd love to see that 2/3 or more of our industry, the survey respondents, are viewing quality management as a competitive, critical advantage to your business. I hope we get there, because this means that we're starting to really get to the point where we as an industry view the importance of quality and the quality mindset as critical to the culture and critical to our industry to be successful. I hope we start to dispel and put to bed this whole idea that a quality system and quality management is just something we have to do to comply with regulations. All right, so let's get into some of the signals from market leaders. 4 times more likely to forecast strong revenue growth in 2021. And I think that's really important because what we're seeing from market leaders is as you would expect, they have strong revenue projections, they have strong market opportunities, they've tapped into products and technologies that are meaningful and necessary for our current day and age. So that's really, really important. And the other interesting thing to pick up on these market leaders is that many of them start the documentation of design and development activities very early on while they're still in concept and feasibility. Now, I started my career in the late 90s, and I got sort of programmed in this early days that um, delay design controls, delay documenting risk, and all these sorts of activities until as late as possible. There was, in fact, a reticence or a hesitancy to even think about documenting design control and traceability activities while I was still in concept and feasibility stages. The perception at that point in time was that it was overly burdensome and very cumbersome and created a lot of minutia and noise and documenting things that weren't applicable or necessary. And and as I talk to people every week, sometimes I come across people who have had that sort of experience, or maybe are having that experience today. And if that happens to be you, my advice to you is maybe you need to reevaluate your practices. If you are working within a system that is too cumbersome to start documenting some of your design control activities, even if you are in early concept and feasibility stages, then your system probably needs to be overhauled and needs to be revisited. There are ways to do this where it's not burdensome. In fact, the advantages are huge because now I can better communicate and collaborate with other stakeholders and team members and make better, more informed decisions. Again, focusing on what's best for patient and what's best for the technology that I'm trying to bring to market. So just keep that in mind. It really is an advantage to start to do this, and we're seeing this from some of the market leaders. What we're also seeing is about half of them have figured out how to fully integrate risk management throughout their entire quality management system and throughout their entire product lifecycle. And when 1345/2016 came out a few years ago, it sort of, I guess, formally or explicitly introduced this idea of a risk-based quality management system. And a lot of folks were, sort of scratching their head trying to figure out what does that mean. And I think it's good to see that, a few years later, about half of the market leaders have figured out how to navigate risk-based quality management system, but also risk-based approaches for total product lifecycle. And folks, I know we still have a lot of work to do in this industry. Most of us are pretty good about risk documenting and managing risk while we're in development. I think we still have a lot of work to do, quite frankly, with respect to production and post-production and managing the total product life cycle. So, and I hope you're not in this situation, but as EU MDR starts to go live, for those of you that are in that market, I think our hands are going to be forced. I would encourage you to get ahead of that rather than be forced into some practice that may not fit your organization. So put a lot of emphasis on risk management, because my prediction is that risk management, and this isn't a super bold prediction, but my prediction is risk management is going to be the center or the topic, the primary topic and focus from a regulatory perspective. I mean, we've been seeing that now for a few years, and I think that's going to continue. If you question whether or not my prediction has any validity, I would encourage you to go read the EU MDR or the EU IVDR and do a quick search for how many times risk or risk management is mentioned in those regulations. It's a lot. The other thing that we've seen from market leaders is that they're viewing traceability matrices from a design control and even from a risk perspective as a good tool to help them make decisions. And I think this is really important. A lot of times folks had viewed, or previously folks have viewed design controls and traceability matrices as sort of a necessary evil, so to speak. But now we're starting to see a trend where best practice market leaders are are using these as tools to help them design safer, more efficient, better products. So that's encouraging. So, there's sort of two things I want you to take home from this particular slide. Are you do you view yourself as highly competitive, or do you aspire to be highly competitive with respect to some other companies in your space? Well, if so, then it's really important for you to understand how to view quality as a strategic asset. I mean, this quote is a really good one, and I'm going to read it for you. Quality management is the glue for the company. It is the business management system. When various processes are not implemented effectively, departments work in silos, and it results in poor outcomes and performance. I've worked in that situation where the company was a bunch of silos, and everyone, from one functional area to the next, a lot of times we just throw things over the wall, and that's not the intent of a quality management system. A quality management system is cohesive. There's good flow of information. There's good collaboration from one functional group to the next. And quality management, I know it sounds cliche perhaps, but it's not just the role of the quality department. It is the role of everyone within a medical device organization. We all play a part in this. I mean, and I love this part. It is the business management system. So think about quality management system. Move beyond just thinking about it being something you have to do to comply with regulations, and embrace this idea that a quality management system describes how we do business within our company. And every one of you within your organization, you play a part in how you do business. So this is the advantage of a quality management system. So let's dive into the technical advantage and how you can embrace this as an organization. So Greenlight Guru, we've been very intentional about our platform, and our platform is a medical device quality management system software platform. It is a SaaS platform that enables work wherever it needs to be done. But the medical device aspect of that is super important. We knew from the beginning that a lot of you have a lot of choices, to be quite frank, as far as what to put in place from a quality management system. You can stick with your status quo, you can stick with paper, you can stick with digital paper, have a SharePoint site or a server or something of that nature. You can purchase a QMS tool that's configurable and customizable, or you can choose a purpose-built solution such as the Greenlight Guru Medical Device Quality Management System software platform. And you have a lot of options, and there's good and bad of all those options. My personal opinion is that having someone like Greenlight Guru in your corner can be an asset, because my job is to make sure that the Greenlight Guru software platform is always up to speed, aligns with the latest, greatest regulations from FDA, 1345, 14971, EU MDR, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So with that in mind, you've got us in your corner. You don't have to worry so much about the compliance. Plus, the workflows, the terminology, the verbiage that are contained within the purpose-built Greenlight Guru solution are the actual verbiage and terminology that you see in FDA and 1345 and EU, et cetera. This gives auditors, not that we should just do things from an audit perspective, but you have to keep that in mind. This is familiar to folks that are going to be evaluating your documentation, your records, and so on and so forth. And I think this is really something that's important to you to think about. Would you rather spend your time and your resources configuring and customizing some sort of tool to sort of meet the intent of the regulations, or would you rather have something that's available out of the box and ready to go? Keep in mind, if you choose the former, or you have to configure and customize something, that's fine, it's good. It's going to require a significant amount of time, effort, resources to get that customized, to get that configured, to validate that tool. And then keep in mind, what happens if in 6 months, something changes? I mean, for example, FDA has talked about moving away from the QSR and moving towards 1345. What do you have to do to your to your workflows? What do you have to do to your systems if and when that happens? Or what happens when, you know, some other market that you're focused on introduces a new regulation? You're going to have to go reconfigure, recustomize, revalidate. So this is something that requires a lot of maintenance on an ongoing basis. And this is something we try to take care of for you on behalf of the industry and the regulations that are in place. And we, like I said, my #1 job is to make sure that the Greenlight platform is always in sync with what's important from a medical device industry perspective. Building a quality culture is so important. You know, and I've, you know, as Nick mentioned at the beginning, I've been in this industry over 20 years. It's hard to believe it's been almost 22 years, or over 22 years rather, that I've been in this space. And I've seen the ups and downs, and I've seen organizations that you know, pay lip service to quality, and I've seen organizations that embrace the importance of quality in the organization. Again, quality is not just a department in your company, it's a mindset, it's a mentality that we should be adopting. So there are kind of 4 key ingredients the way I see it. Market strength, really important, because, you know, if you have this quality culture and this quality mindset, you're going to be more competitive in the marketplace. This is going to ooze out of your products. This is going to ooze out of your ethos as an organization. This is really important from a market strength and position perspective. I think maybe this is obvious, but as an organization, you're going to be way more efficient if you're embracing quality as part of your culture and your mindset as part of your organization. That means you're implementing best practices. That means you're automating things where you can. You're implementing purpose-built solutions so that you're not spending your valuable resources on low to no value add activities. They're actually focused on moving the ball forward, whether that be designing, you know, a new device, you know, from that extra bandwidth that you get, or maybe they're iterating a design improvement, or maybe there's, you know, other information that or activities that your team is doing, instead of having to fill out a form that doesn't add value, or spending hundreds of hours compiling a design history file when it should just be part of that natural flow. So efficiency is a key ingredient to those market leaders. As I mentioned, risk management, you know, I'm sure a lot of you might be rolling your eyes when I talk about risk management. You know, I can recall quite vividly, frankly, so many times, so many meetings, so many hundreds of hours spent locked in a conference room, what seemed like for days, sometimes literally was days, just doing risk management activities. And again, I think this is an old way of doing things. If this is how you're doing risk management today, I would encourage you to refresh your approach and realize that, you know, you've got to figure out a way to embrace risk management, to have this quality culture and this quality mindset. And then the 4th ingredient is a strategic point of view. You know, you've got to leverage. You're sitting as a company. You're sitting on a lot of. You're sitting on a gold mine, quite frankly, whether you realize it or not. The trouble is, a lot of that gold sometimes is buried deep in the surface and embedded in rock, and you got to figure out how to, I mean, mine that gold in a way that can give you value. But what if you had a way where you can better access and leverage the data and information about your products and processes in a way that allows you to be proactive? And I think those who are really starting to move towards this quality culture mindset are starting to figure out how to mine that data more effectively and efficiently. And they're using the quality system data to help them make informed business decisions. And that data ideally is very close to real time. You know, I know a lot of companies, they struggle with data management. In fact, the data and information that they get oftentimes is lagging, sometimes by several months. And you know, if you get data today that's 3 or 4 months old and you're making a decision today, I mean, how long is that going to take to perpetuate throughout your entire organization? So these are some of those key ingredients that to keep in mind. You know, it's sort of, if you remember or if you've ever seen the I think it comes from the FDA QSIP Quality System Inspection Technique Guidance document. They had this little graphic, and at the center, and it's kind of painting a picture, if you will, of all the key processes as part of your quality system. And at the middle or the center of that, it's like executive management. That's the center, and it is expected from a regulatory perspective in the medical device industry that senior management, executive management, has to have key stake in ownership of the quality management system. And I think what you start to see is the companies who are view quality as a strategic advantage, that they're really trying to embrace this role that they play within the quality management system. There's a little bit of a disconnect, though, to be quite honest. Some of the employees are saying that there's a lack of management buy-in is a major obstacle to improving some of their processes, including areas of product development. So we have some work to do, certainly. And getting into that leadership misalignment, if you will, there is a disconnect. I think even if the key executives within a company, I think they believe or they truly do believe that quality is important. They just might not understand the obstacles and barriers to get there. And if you're at a manager or contributor level, I mean, the further removed you are from that executive management, it probably can feel very frustrating at times, because you're like, we got too many things to do and not enough people and not enough hours in the day. And you've got your key executive team that's out there saying, do more, do better, make higher quality, safer products. I mean, I think the words are intentional. I think the words are belief, but you got to figure out how to get there. And there is a big disconnect within organizations, from the contributor level to the executive level. And I think there's opportunities to figure out how to get through that. So as I mentioned, the point of view really kind of varies based on role. So again, as an industry, we have some work to do. So key question here is quality viewed as a strategic asset? Point of view from executives, 46% are saying yes. From managers, 31%, and contributors, 34%. So even within those three different roles, there's a pretty big variation between managers and executives. So why the disconnect? Why the divide? Let's look at some more specifics here. So you can see that management and contributors clearly are showing or are indicating that they believe that there's a shortage of resources in order to, especially around that product development focus. And, interestingly though, I think if you look at the next slide or a couple of lines down where it says believe quality is woven into company culture, you can see that across all levels, that well over half at all levels of the company do view that quality is woven into the culture. There's just some ways or some obstacles to get there. So what now? Let's give you some ways to prepare for 2021. And I know we're coming up on the tail end of our conversation here today, but I encourage you to adopt a quality culture approach from a company that's going to help you to be much more competitive. It's going to certainly make you more efficient. Your resources are going to be more satisfied. That I know throughout my career, what I look at as important to me is job satisfaction. Do I enjoy? Am I satisfied with my contributions? And I think a lot of employees within even medical device companies, they get the mission. They understand that products and services are going to help people, but sometimes they're dissatisfied with the role that they play in that. So, if you adopt that quality culture, this will put you on that path to keep your employees more satisfied with their day-to-day. From a system perspective, you're going to have closer to real-time data so that you can make better decisions rather than lagging decisions. And the tighter you can make that gap from your data to making decisions, obviously that's more closely controlled closed loop traceability and feedback systems that are going to mean that your products are going to be safer and more effective than they currently are. It's key to build cohesion and collaboration and amongst your leaders and managers and contributors, all levels. We from some of the slides I showed a moment ago, there's still a pretty big disconnect between executives and managers and contributors. So ideally, these all levels are sort of in cohesion with one another, and doing so will improve certainly lines of communication across all levels within an organization, but it's going to keep, back to that previous slide, employees are going to be more satisfied, you're going to have more efficiency, you're going to have safer products, you're going to get more products to market. So I just would encourage you to, focus on your performance and try to figure out how to prepare yourself for 2021 and beyond, because, let's be real, we were kind of forced in this situation as in large part because of COVID-19 pandemic, and maybe we weren't entirely as prepared as we should be. However, hopefully our eyes are opened a little bit more that COVID will end, and it will end soon, and we'll be back to normal. But does that mean we should be complacent and revert back to bad practices, or should we realize that there might be something else that happens next year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now? We should be prepared for that. We shouldn't be caught off guard in those situations. So I highly encourage you to embrace technology. I mean, there's a lot of awesome solutions and tools that are designed to try to make life a little bit easier for everyone. And Greenlight Guru Medical Device Quality Management System is certainly one of those things that we have intentionally designed and developed and provide to try to make your quality management system initiatives just a little bit easier, actually a lot easier. We'll give you real-time data and information that help you make better decisions. I mean, we have this really cool thing that we've incorporated into our platform. It's leveraging machine learning and natural language processing. And the first feature within our product is called Visualize. I mean, imagine taking your quality management system, all of your documents and records, static list of details and so on, and clicking a button and magically seeing the connection of how everything within your quality management system ecosystem is connected to one another, so that if you get some bit of information over here and you're trying to figure out the impact of that, you can click a button and magically you have a visual chart that shows you exactly what else could potentially be impacted by whatever that situation is, whether it be a complaint or a design change that you want to make. Visualize is a component to help you do that. I mean, think about it. Picture is worth 1,000 words, and you have so many different pictures that you can generate within Greenlight Guru with the Visualize functionality. It's going to help you make better decisions about running a better business and embracing that quality culture. The other things that I think are important, as I mentioned earlier, is we've built this specifically and only for the medical device industry, and it's been designed by actual medical device professionals. I mean, my background. I've been in the industry for over 22 years. We have a lot of other gurus who work at Greenlight Guru who also have significant medical device industry experience, who are an integral part to our design and development practices. So rest assured, we've got you covered with respect to 820, 1345, EU MDR, 14971, Part 11, and we take care of all that heavy lifting from a validation perspective as well. So just encourage you, go to www.greenlight.guru to learn more about how the Greenlight Guru Medical Device Quality Management System software platform, man, that is a mouthful, can be an asset to your organization and help you establish more of a competitive advantage in the marketplace. So just go check that out, and be sure to go check the website out too for the full 2021 state of report. It's available to you, and certainly we have. I know I chewed up most of the time today, so thank you for your patience. But Nick, we might have time for a couple of questions.
Thank you, John. Very, very insightful presentation. Lots of great takeaways there. As you mentioned, we do have a couple minutes for questions here. Just checking our time. We're actually good to go till 9:55. So we have about 10 minutes here, and we got a lot of questions. So I'm going to dive right in. So John, we got a question from Lindsay here. She asked, what are some tips that you'd give contributors and/or management to get executive buy-in into the importance of viewing quality as an asset rather than a compliance activity?
Yeah, well, I mean, one tip might be, I mean, it's sometimes you have to be a little bit provocative, I think, unfortunately. And if you were to go, like, you can go to the FDA website, for example, and you can in fact sign up for an email to come into your inbox with updates. But if you read some of the warning letters or some of the adverse events, I think warning letters are somewhat would be a good suggestion. If you can glean or scour through some of those warning letters, I mean, you can filter those views pretty quickly. Like if there's a particular area of your business that you're like, I wish we could do a better job here, you can find warning letters on FDA website that speak to companies that are struggling with those. And I think those can be insightful, but sometimes those warning letters they languish a little bit. So I would encourage you to try to find some excerpts. Nobody wants to go through like an FDA inspection or an audit and learn about shortcomings. And I think executive management would be speak to their language, a little bit, their love language, if you will, within their company a little bit, because now that means that they're going to have to divert, if that situation were to manifest, they're going to have to divert valuable resources to go fix those issues. So that would be one thing that you might have to be a little bit provocative to try to convey. And oftentimes, frankly, I think it's a communication problem. I don't think executive management is saying don't do quality. Now, some of you may have experiences where that might be the case, and I'm sorry if you're working in those environments. But generally speaking, I don't think executive management is just saying nope, we don't care about quality. I just don't think they understand sort of the day-to-day role and what that entails and that sort of thing. So it's really about trying to how can you build trust with that executive team, and how can you have healthy conflict, and how can you communicate effectively about the challenges and obstacles. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, really, really great advice. Thank you, John. Saeed has a follow-up question, a little bit related to the Greenlight Guru and the software. He says, at the time of an inspection or audit, will there be any issue to show online traceability rather than providing Word documents? So I think using the software, showing documents in the software versus printing them out into Word documents.
Saeed, I say generally speaking, no, there would not be a challenge with showing the information in real time, so to speak. To be honest, so it's going to probably depend quite a bit on auditor preference. This is changing and moving in the right direction, but like historically, an FDA investigator is probably going to be more hold it in my hand, tangible paper sort of evidence, so to speak. In recent years, pre-COVID and now a lot more since COVID, ISO auditors seem to be more accustomed to sort of on-screen information. So like I have, and I know many of our customers have been through like an ISO audit where we're sitting in a conference room, we've got the display on the wall, and auditor asked for something, and somebody whoever's behind the controls can pull up that information, pop it up on screen, and address the whatever is being asked about. Now, as I mentioned briefly earlier in the presentation today, FDA just, I think it was about a month or so ago, announced a pilot program where they're looking at doing remote inspections. So I think this is where the world's going in our industry, where these tech-enabled inspections, whether remote or on-site, but tech-enabled certainly is going to become the norm and much more common. So I would encourage you to try to figure out how to navigate with the tech-enabled methodology.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that and giving some experience with our customers going through those inspections as well. All right, Cedric has a question here. He says, do you have any tips to help convey the message to the leadership team and investors of early stage medical device companies that quality management is actually an asset and not simply a regulatory requirement?
Yeah,
And
that's a hard one.
similar to our, but a little different.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard because, you know, if you put a quality management system in place, even if you're right sizing and you only, you know, put portions of that in place during early development, sometimes it's hard for especially the novice, somebody that may not be familiar with the trials and tribulations and obstacles and challenges that a medical device company needs to address. Um, you know, that's a good question, Cedric. I guess as I think about it, uh, you know, it's important. I mean, I hate to tell people to do something because, you know, well, the law says so and the regulations say this. But sometimes with, you know, somebody that's maybe a little less savvy about the criteria within the industry, you know, certainly from an investor and from an executive point of view for the early stage startup that maybe isn't intimately familiar, these are barriers to entry, quite frankly. And, you know, for example, like if you're trying to bring a product to market in like EU or Canada, establishing a full quality management system and going through a full quality management system audit, that's the barrier to entry. Now, it's not quite the case necessarily in the US yet, especially for like class 1 and class 2 devices. So it could be an ignorance is bliss sort of thing. But, you know, there's all sorts of horror stories about startups who sort of ignored quality management system and the regulations and documentation and so on. And, you know, the ignorance is bliss. You know, they get their clearance, they go to market, and then they're going to be inspected. And then, you know, it's, excuse the expression, it becomes a shitstorm because all the things that they didn't do or were ignorant about, you know, it can bleed a company out. I mean, you know, just think of a cost of, you know, and there's some McKinsey reports on this, the cost of like warning letters, the cost of 43s, the cost of recalls. It is very, very expensive, especially for a startup that might be struggling for funding. I mean, the simple answer is there's ways to build this into your company and into your culture from day one that don't slow anything down, that actually will improve your efficiency and actually will speed things up. So if you design it appropriately, you know, even if that key investor or, you know, maybe a key executive doesn't really get it, there are ways to design your approach such that you'll satisfy their need to get things to market a little bit quicker. You'll be more capital efficient, and you'll be compliant. So, you know, you'll get all kinds of bonuses. But if you want some additional follow-up, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to have a chat with you about that.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And we had a comment here from Andrew on that. He said, I believe one other key point on quality culture is it will support exit events with fewer problems or risks to closing on an acquisition. Thank you.
Andrew, thanks for that. Yeah, sorry, Nick. Andrew, that's a really great point. In fact, a quote comes to mind from I think he's got 4 or 5 companies that he's implemented Greenlight Guru with. You know, he's a prolific investor in the medical device industry. But previously he used to work for a medical device company, and he worked for a very large company, and he used to talk about when they would go in to assess and evaluate potential acquisition targets, startups to add to their portfolio. He said they would give them a valuation haircut when they didn't know or didn't have design controls and a design history file. And if they didn't have any sort of formal quality management system, those were discount points that were applied to that acquisition. So I don't think you want to be a startup that's getting reductions in valuation because of poor practices.
Absolutely not. That would not be fun. All right, John, we got time for 1 or 2 questions left here. I got one that I think is near and dear to your heart. I think it may be a good one to close out. I think you may have some strong feelings on this. So Michael asks, as software becomes more and more embedded in medical devices, are you seeing medical device software teams embrace quality at the same level as medical device design and manufacturing teams?
It's mixed, to be quite honest. I mean, I think there's actually it's an interesting parallel to early in my career. I'm going back to late 90s, early 2000s, and product, and I worked largely at that point in time on mechanical, some electromechanical, but mechanical products, and product development engineers at that time they were largely resistant to this whole notion of design controls and risk. The perception at that time is that it was overly burdensome, didn't add any value. We're just trying to satisfy somebody else within our company to, fill out the forms that are defined within the procedure. It took me personally quite a few years before I got it. And I think that what's interesting today is that software, at least in the grand scheme of all things medical device, the software as a med device is one of the newest segments of the industry, and it is a growth segment for sure. But what I'm seeing a lot of times is that the mentality of software developers it parallels my experience of 20 some years ago. But at the same time, I see other software developers that they're very what's the word? They're very ingrained and methodical about their approach, and they almost poo-poo the regulations at time as something that doesn't contribute to what they're doing. But frankly, the best in class software as a med device companies, and we're blessed at Greenlight Guru to have some of these companies as customers of ours. What I learned from them is, and one comes to mind in particular, it's Kios, and it's KOIOS Medical. They're a blend, right? They have a blended team, people who have quality and regulatory, medical device quality and regulatory experience, but best in class software developers. And I'm paraphrasing, what I've heard from them time and time again is you got to figure out, software best practices, agile methodology, what have you, and figure out how to construct your business processes, which again, remember, your quality management system should describe your business practices. You have to figure out how to blend all of these things together, because if you are a medical device company, there are certain rules to play the game, so to speak. There's certain criteria that thou shalt address. And you can do so in a way that's not overly burdensome. You can do so in a way that actually improves your throughput and efficiency and ensures that you're addressing those compliance needs. So it is important. And this is part of what, why we're here at Greenlight Guru, is to help facilitate and aid you in that quest while you can still do, what you prefer to do. So there's a little bit of art to this, but if you're intentional about setting up your quality management system, setting up your practices, I believe confidently that you can do so in a way that will have the best of both worlds.
Awesome. Well, thank you, John. Well, we are right at the top of the hour here. Just want to thank everybody again for joining us here in the first session of the 2021 State of Medical Device Virtual Summit hosted by Greenlight Guru. I hope you're sticking around. We got a lot of really great sessions for you today. Our next session is coming up just in 15 minutes. Is going to be with Matthew Diamond, who is the Chief Medical Officer at FDA for FDA's newly launched Digital Health Center of Excellence and the advancement of digital health technology. He's going to be giving you an inside look into what's going on at FDA, the latest and greatest. So you're going to be sure to not want to miss that one. Again, coming up here in 15 minutes. And again, thank you, John, for the time today. Your presentation, very insightful. And thank you, everybody on the line here today, for joining us. All right, take care. Thank you.